So before I toss things off to Murphy Napier here to handle the fantasy news, I need to do a last-minute insert to talk about the fact that, yes, we are getting a new live-action Lord of the Rings adaptation coming to us through Embracer, the company that said they were going to be focusing on video games, which, yes, a bunch of new Lord of the Rings video games have been announced, and they have handed it off to New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers. I've seen some people saying this is going to be the trilogy adapted again. We do not know that for sure. All we know is it's going to be the third age and could even just be a spin-off for some story characters or something along those lines. Which pretty much the unanimous reaction to this I've seen is exactly what you'd expect. A whole lot of people going, "No!" But yeah, that's kind of my sentiment too. No, but actually just concur. It does come down to just a bit of feeling incredibly defensive over a trilogy that was foundational to my development of the love of the fantasy genre. But on top of that, it just feels so incredibly unnecessary. Those movies, I should say, hold up incredibly well in their own right. And the attempt at trying to top them now, when there has been so many fantasy adaptations that have been disappointing for a myriad of reasons, it just feels wrong. And I would love to see another fantasy series that has not been adapted instead be given this treatment, but that's not how Hollywood works. The money machine must keep on printing. And so yes, we are getting a new Lord of the Rings live action in the works, incredibly early stages, could be canceled, but now into the rest of the fantasy news.
Welcome to fantasy news. Daniel's had a busy week, so he asked me to fill in for fantasy news this week, and it is a busy week, so we have quite a few newses to get through. With that said, we also got an announcement for another live action. Stuff that has been so popular. This time it's for Lilo and Stitch, which is actually a great Disney movie. Still don't want a live action for it, but it is a great movie. And Zach Galifianakis has been casted for this movie, though his role is not announced yet. I think he's gonna be one of the aliens, probably that one. But I would like to highlight this tweet that asked, is he Lilo or Stitch? This is what Twitter is supposed to be. Just memes and humor. Well, at least that's what I use all my social medias for. Next news story is going to be
No Murph, sponsor time.
Looking to get started on your fragrance journey? Scentbird is there to get you started.
Scentbird.com.
Scentbird is a monthly fragrance subscription service that allows you to try fragrances and perfumes before committing to one.
Scentbird.com.
You'll get to choose a new designer fragrance each month before making the big leap into purchasing a full bottle.
Scentbird.com.
It's really easy to use too. Just slip the new fragrance into your refillable atomizer case and you are good to go.
Scentbird.com.
They work directly with over 600 brands such as Prada, Gucci, and Versace.
Scentbird.com.
This month's personal favorite was The Harmonist by Magnetic Wood, as well as Ash by Ashley Benson's East 12th, which featured notes of black cedar, rose damask, and zesty orange. Zesty.
Scentbird.com.
Most of those designer brands cost upwards of $150 to $500.
Scentbird.com.
But Scentbird offers all of these at a fraction of the cost.
Scentbird.com.
Try out a 30-day supply for only $17. And when you're ready, you can choose to upgrade to the full size.
Scentbird.com.
Be sure to use code GREEN to save 55% off your first month. Scentbird.
Scentbird.com.
okay. That was rude. It was in the middle of newsing, but okay. Next news is that the official Shadow and Bone Season 2 trailer did drop. I know there were some mixed opinions out there for how Season 1 was received for fans of the series, but if you're gonna continue on, here's the trailer for Season 2. With that did come a little bit of controversy though, because they did do a poster for it, and a small artist has been posting, basically showing off their art and the official poster side by side and saying, you kind of stole my concept. As far as I could find, there hasn't been an official response to this, but I'm sure Daniel will keep you updated if there is one. Next news.
Hi Murphy.
What?
Just want to
No!
interrupt here with
Why?
a story about Marcus Rutherford, who did an interview talking about his experience on Wheel of Time. He plays Perrin, by the way. He talked about his experience on Wheel of Time, how he didn't want to be typecast, how he likes playing a character who's more quiet and brooding, but he did reveal some interesting stuff about season 2. He said there's going to be a big time skip, which has some of us wondering what that's all about, and that there's going to be a lot more action, and the characters are going to be a little more wiser, better, faster, stronger, etc. So what I gathered from this interview is that he seems like a pretty cool guy. Also, season 2 is going to be a little more intense. Well, that's all I got. Now I have to do my taxes.
This is my show, yeah? We all agreed that I was doing the news today? Next news. Terry Pratchett books are getting new covers, and they look amazing. They're also being announced on this website that does this when you move your mouse around, which I love. As a new fan to Pratchett's books, and as someone who is making deliberate attempts to not purchase books right now in an attempt to save money, I'm very tempted. They're beautiful. So if you're a big fan of Pratchett and you like collecting pretty editions of things, this is Murphy approved. For what that would be worth. Clarkesworld has shut down submissions. So this is known as one of the fastest, most efficient sci-fi fantasy publishers for responding to submissions. They get a lot of sci-fi fantasy submissions, and Clarkesworld has been known to be on top of submissions, get back to people really quickly, always. Clarkesworld submissions are always open, always quick to respond, and it's said that they pay their authors well when they do publish. Due to the unbelievable increase in AI-generated short stories that are being submitted, spam submitted, Clarkesworld, for the first time, is having to close submissions because they just can't find a solution for this right now. The detectors that you can use to try to suss out AI stories aren't reliable enough, and Clarkesworld doesn't want to have real authors pinged for this, and they don't have a solution at this point. Many other publishers are having the same issue, and it seems like the speculation, or at least the speculation that Clarkesworld gave, is that it's these third-party side hustle, make passive income with the zero effort kind of advices. That's where this is coming from. People just trying to get that extra cash. AI-generated short stories submitted to magazines is one of the suggestions, and they're just being inundated with that sort of stuff. This is happening to a lot of publishers though, and it's a problem that they're trying to figure out how they can move forward at this point, which is affecting a lot of authors trying to get published. We also got the announcement that there will be 5 new Lord of the Rings games coming by March of 2024. There's not a lot of information about what these games are going to be, other than that they're going to be on PC, console, mobile. So there's a bunch of stuff coming. If you're interested in more Lord of the Rings games, there will be plenty of announcements coming, I'm sure, because they haven't actually said what the games are going to be or what they're going to be about, but hey, they're coming if that interests you. And the final news! Daniel, this has been a controversial news week. The final news is that Roald Dahl's estate, the IP owners, the company, are working with their publisher to put out new versions of his books. It took some digging to figure out if the Roald Dahl Story Company is actually on board with these changes, or if it was kind of pressure by the publishers, and I still don't have a clear answer. I don't know if we ever will, but as far as I can tell, it looks like they are working with the publisher that they want these changes to. This isn't being forced on them, as far as I can tell. But since 2020, they have been working on editing and updating all of the Dahl books to replace certain words or phrases, maybe add a phrase or two, keep the story itself intact, but make it more updated language. It's not unusual to review the language used alongside updating other details. Our guiding principle throughout this has been to maintain the storylines, characters, and the irreverence and sharp-edged spirit of the original text. This is the story that I've done the most research on because it seems to be the one that people are discussing the most. There's been a lot of commentary online from authors and journalists and humans, just people hanging out who love his stories and want to talk about this. I personally didn't grow up with these books and I don't have nostalgia attached to them, but it has been really interesting to look into because I grew up with Mary Poppins, the movie, and I remember when I bought a copy of the book for myself and my dad, we both read through it and then at the end there was an editor's note saying this isn't the original complete text, that some things had been changed in more recent publications to adjust some of the language that was used at that point. So I know that I've read at least one book that's done this, but it is interesting because I'd love to open up I would love to have an open, respectful conversation about this in the comments, because this isn't my channel, but also because I find this really fascinating, because Peter Pan is my favorite book, and I have every intention of reading this book to my kids. When I do, there will be entire sections of it that I will skip over, because there were some very gross depictions in that book. But when my kids get older, I'll read it with them again, this time not skipping over passages, and talking to them about history and prejudices and how that affects the world. Personally, I don't feel that it's necessary to update language in classic books. I think that it opens up the window, opens up the door to be able to have essential conversations with kids. That said, I'm pretty okay with the handling of this. As far as I can tell, which I don't have a lot of information to go off of at this point, but as far as I can tell, the IP owners, the Roald Dahl Story Company, seems perfectly happy to be doing this. They say that they started making these changes before Netflix bought up the rights to make further adaptations, which means that this was something that they were actively trying to do because it was something that they believed in, not because there will be, you know, more attention drawn to the books and they want to hurry up and update them so that they don't get flack or something like that. And at least at this point, it looks like they're not removing old copies of the books from bookstores. There are bookstores right now that are selling the old copies and the updated copies side by side, and you get to choose which version you want to pick. I read through a lot of the changes because there are hundreds over the mini books. I read through a lot of the changes, and some of them I completely understand the motivation behind. Some I don't. Some I don't really, it seems like a lot. So personally, while I don't feel the need to change the language of classics, and while I do think that the changes made on the Dahl books do seem quite excessive, the fact that the old versions and the new versions are being sold side by side so people get to choose what they want to do makes me not really too fussed over it, although I do wish that the editor's note explaining the changes were longer and in a better place. Right now, it's in the corner underneath a bunch of publication notes in a place where most people don't actually read. I'd rather it be a nice big editor's note before chapter 1, explaining the reasons why, so that people who aren't just constantly online hearing discourse and won't know about these changes will also know what they're participating in. However, again, I've no nostalgia attached to this, and there's a lot of factors to this, so I would love to hear what you think. This whole thing has kind of been blowing up the internet, which I find fascinating, and I would be really curious to see how you feel about it. Anyway, that has
Daniel,
been
stop. I have to interrupt. I think Murphy's trying to steal your chance.
No more interruptions.
And once again, a big shout out and thank you to Scentbird.com. Check them out in the description down below.
That has been Fantasy News. It's over now. I'm Murphy Napier, and I have been your host. Daniel posts videos on days of the week on this channel, so you should subscribe if you'd like to see more of them. He usually doesn't look like me, so subscribe to see what his videos look like. All links to all articles are in the description. I'll see you, oh no I won't. Daniel, we'll see you again soon. Bye.